Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back for more Warmachine, and this time the Bane Knight Officer for the Cryx faction. Moldy skin, 09149. So a variant of Bane Warriors. Bane Knights are more oriented towards charge maneuvers. You get what I'm trying to say. When they first appeared in the game, Bane Knights were not too much different from Bane Warriors. And subsequent iterations have made them much more distinct. I can't remember off the top of my head what additional abilities the officer gives the unit, but there's also a little oddity in where you can find his card. Next up, Leather White 09062. Privateer has changed to an online database for cards for those who choose not to use the app for whatever reason. And for some reason, instead of being with the units of Cryx, the officers in with their battle engines. Guessing that's an oversight, but a fairly minor one, I would say. So I'm painting him to match my previously existing unit. And I only have one unit of Bane Knights currently. I will get another eventually, but I'm also trying to focus on getting the units maxed out. Now, in terms of the slot base, this model is mostly resin, and there was no tab to go through, and the masking tape I normally would use to cover up the opening in the base, well, it didn't stick to that very well, so I used a very thin piece of sheet styrene that I glued over there, which the model adheres to just fine. And the need to cover up the hole in the base is from the simple fact that when I flock it, the flock will tend to go through that hole and leave ugly looking divots. Try to get a nice solid coat of this. One thing about the resin, though, is it is difficult to clean and sand. It holds detail reasonably well, but it also makes it more difficult to tell what's supposed to be, at least for me anyway, what's supposed to be a detail and what's just a flash from the mold making process. Looks like it requires much thicker vents and pour spouts than metal does, but a shift to resins is just an industry shift, and that's all there is to it. Alright. I can do a little more, I think, before I need to let things dry. So, uniform gray. Doing a two-tiered color scheme on his lance. But and instead of the heavy war axes, the Bane Knights use these lances which have a 2-inch range. They're a little better armored. They're slightly better armored than Bane Warriors because of the shield, but just by a bit. And then I'm going to take a little bit of fur brown. Don't need much, it's only going on one very specific detail, much like the face. And that detail is this strap on the shield here. Okay. I'm going to let that dry, and then move on. Oh boy, and I've dropped about 100 frames in the last couple of seconds without catching it. Holy cow. Alright, next up, plate mail metal. Working from the lowest portion of the model to the highest. Here I'm going to get the scale mail sticking out from underneath the officer's hard plates on its armor. And a few supplemental details on the pauldrons. Working from the lowest point of the model to the highest. Keeping my brush moist but not overly wet, I'm essentially using just enough water to thin the paint. Okay, I will get the spikes on the shield. Now, unlike warjacks and warbeasts and other differently named parallels, shields on infantry usually do not function as weapons in and of themselves, but typically are taken into account for armor bonuses. Though they're not an armor bonus that can be bypassed with a chain weapon rule. Okay. I think that's enough of that, so let's get to the meat of this, which is the blades of the Bane Lance. Okay, gonna let that dry, and then I will get the armor, and that'll wrap up base coats. Alright, next, Coppery Orange 09102, and this will be the last base coat. Going to carefully pick out the hard plates on the armor, while carefully avoiding the steel I previously did. Using the fingers of my offhand to steady my dominant hand. Gotta be careful around the armpit region here. Heard a tone that indicates I got some kind of notice from my computer, and I don't give a care what it is. I also see my camera is causing some problems. Fine. Fine. I'm just gonna put up with this funky lighting. Get this done. Maybe if I turn this off for a second and then give it another try. Nope, that doesn't help. That might help. The joys of technical difficulties strike again. Now the blade assemblage on the back is much more elaborate than on a typical Bane Knight. Alright, let's see here. Now is where it gets a little tricky, so I'm gonna just carefully get the helmet, avoiding the shoulders for now. Try to get the back of the faceplate and then go back and get the rest of the breastplate. That's too thick. Try to thin that out a little bit. Okay. Now, going up over the shoulders, the shield will be the last thing I touch here. Now I've got too much water. Careful, careful, careful. There. Just one little section at a time. Okay. Go ahead and finish up this arm and get the bottom of the pauldron. Make sure I get a nice coat on the back too while I'm at it. Go all the way up the hand. Careful where it grips the weapon. Okay. Now the other side. Let's get that up in the gap here a little more. Go on the back to finish up the arm. Okay, I'll get a little looser on the shield here. Being really careful to go in between the spikes. I'm generally gripping by the base, but don't be afraid to grip by other portions of the model that are dry. That helps. Need to do a little more work on the scale mail on that side. I'll take care of that off camera. Being careful near the strap, I want to get the gauntlet around it, not the strap itself. He is pointing off in command, likely designating a target for his unit to charge. Okay. A little bit of that plate mail metal there, just touching up the scale mail on that hip. Down there. Alright, that's base coat. Once that dries completely, I can start shading. Alright, time to shade. Scorched metal 09125. Thinning this into a wash with 1 part water to 1 part paint, at least for most colors. And this is probably going to be, no, I think I can do 1 more if I'm lucky. So we'll just see if I can get lucky with this. Carefully start on the helmet. Work my way down. Alright. Get the undersides of the shoulders first, just because I feel like it. Just going on the top, letting it flow into the nooks and crannies. Finishing up the torso, starting on the arms. Be careful because I don't want to nick the leather at this point. Go ahead and get the guards on the thighs in front. Okay. Go along the other arm now. Then on the front of the shield. Keeping the brush nice and wet during all of this, just letting it flow. Let it flow down. Okay, I'm going to take a risk here. Matte black. Just a tiny dot. And with particularly dark colors like straight black, you'll need to use 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint to thin it properly, otherwise it'll end up too dark and obscure your details. Carefully go over the gray on the lance. Right. Okay. Okay. That's just about got it. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Let that dry completely, then I can move on. Alright, next, Blackened Steel 09205. Thin that out. Now, fluff-wise on Bane Knights, and in fact all Banes, they are animated by a powerful anti-life spirit called a Bane spirit that comes from the Void, a gap between Cain, the mortal world, and Urkane, the primal world where the gods dwell. Now, certain funerary practices, such as burning a body too soon, or certain rites practiced by the Menites can force a soul into this void, where it will eventually become a Bane. And the Bane character solo, Bane Lord Tartarus, is one such soul. So to a certain extent, the faithful of Menoth can be blamed, at least partially, for the creation of one of the most horrible terrors to stalk the Iron Kingdoms. And the wind is picking up, so I had my windows open to let some fresh air in. Now things are warming up, but also leads to some better lighting, but that's going to have to probably stop in a minute here. Ruddy weather 09109. I just need a tiny little dot to go across the strap for the shield. And Ghoul skin 09148. Tiny dot again. This is just going in the face. Once that dries completely, I can get some lighting effects done and do the last of the shading. Okay. Prep some lighting effects with matte white. Just a tiny dot. The only lighting here is the eyes. The mouth, which is barely visible. A little more to get that mouth. Okay. And now, leather white 09061, or no, linen white 09061. This is the last shading. Just gonna go over this ghostly ectoplasm skirt sort of thing. Oh, yeah, I've got some on the pond by mistake. I can take care of that easily enough. Okay. I should mention one key ability of all Banes I'm familiar with is Ghostly, which makes him immune to free strikes and lets him move through obstacles and other models as long as they can go completely past. It's really handy for getting them to targets. However, unlike the similar incorporeal, they are not, at no time, at least not by their own abilities, have any immunity to range attacks. So, when going against them, your best chance is to gun them down before they get into charge range. And when playing with them, you want to get into charge range as soon as possible. You're going to let that dry up, and back in a minute. Now that last layer is not completely dry, but it's dry enough I can move on. Pale green 09012. Just need a tiny dot for now. this is going to be my lighting effect. 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint for this. Just get in the eye of the face there. And switching to a flathead brush, I'm going to take matte white and prep the front arc. Deliberately overextending for now, and cutting it back later after I'm finished with the highlighting and detailing. Alright. Back once that's all completely dry. Alright. All that shading is dry now. Time to highlight. Bloodless Skin 09150. Using a dry brushing technique. No water, straight paint only. Ragged feathered brush that is completely dry. Gonna rub most of your paint out on a paper towel. It looks like there's nothing left. And dusty area to be affected. Ghost White 09063. Oddly enough, when highlighting the undead, typically with skeletal features, you see only the mouth and eyes on the head highlighted, or eye sockets of the head highlighted, or not lit up, excuse me. But logically, as far as logic can apply to the undead anyway, you would think that the lighting, if it originates from the skull, would also come out the nasal cavity as well, but in lighting up the nasal cavities on the biothorals a bit ago, it looks a bit goofy. Just kind of a little oddity. True Silver 09207 is next. I had to think for a second. I'm working from the lowest area to the highest. So okay. All right. Let's do that. Yeah. Ancient Bronze 09049. Pick this one. Make sure I'm still recording. just realized I forgot to do the spikes on the shield. That'll be easy to fix in a minute here. And I'm hearing my computer making noises I don't like. It means something funny is going on. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit to that true silver and get the shield spikes here. Wrap this up with, I think I screwed up, but Misty Gray 09090. Yeah, I meant to use Stormy Gray instead of Uniform Gray when I did the base coat, but that's on the half. But you know what, that's fine. We'll give this some unique character. This brush is almost shut. Let's see if I got one more go in it. Not too bad, but I'll have to touch up the knuckle a little bit. Alright, now pale green 09012 again. And the flathead, and I'll apply a faction-specific color to the front orc now. And once this dries, I can tidy it up. Oh, but I've just realized I forgot one color to highlight. Burnt orange 09111. Just a tiny bit to which to highlight the strap on the shield there. Now we got it. Okay, now I can let this all dry up. Alright, time to tidy up the arc. Matte black. Using the same amount of water I'd use for a base coat. In other words, just enough to thin the paint. Taking a fine brush. Okay, use this to mark the edges. Tidy those up. And switching back to my favorite flathead. Just carefully backfill. Okay, I need to let that dry, but I'm almost done. Alright, next a little matte white. And I just need to take a detail brush and put a Roman numeral 1 on the back. Since this is UA number 1, but just writing an accompanying number on a reference card through the on the plastic sleeve I put it in. It's makes it easy to tell which is which. Alright, while that dries for a minute, take some white glue and mix up a solution for basing. And add in water. That mixed up. I'm going to set it aside now for a minute. Grab my box of flock, or in this case, Tupperware container. Mix of just flock and static, a little bit of static grass in there. And this is dried enough. Just going to paint the glue solution around the base. Give it a dip in the material. Tap off the excess. And take a spare brush that's dry. I'm just going to brush it away from areas I don't want it. Okay, need to let that sit for a bit so I can wrap up. Alright, last step that I can do on camera. The actual final step will be to varnish this once this is done. Let Scenic Cement. It's a Woodland Scenics product, and I'm just dripping it into the flock to seal it. And if I don't give this time to sit beforehand, it'll just push the material around, leave some ugly gaps in it, so. Alright. That is it. The Bane Knight Officer from the Cryx faction of Warmachine. And my camera just went wacky. Alright, well, let's see if I can fix this and have a good parting shot. But I am going to be switching to Monster Apocalypse for a couple of videos before going back to Warmachine. So until then, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.